You all chose to be here.
Yeah.
You could have watched football, you could have done homework, you could have went on a date, you could have hung out with friends, you could have went to bed, you could have done anything. And nobody was asking you to be here, but you're here. And that blows me away. It is the best group of people to lead because of that, because you just get to run with the horses.
Hey fam, this is Josiah Keneally. You're tuning into the Young Adults Today podcast. Pumped to have you join us for today's conversation. Jesus is our passion. Young adults are our burden. Our guest today is Brennan Schmidt. Brennan leads the Oasis in Brookings, South Dakota. They see over 800 college students, partner with their local church every week for their young adult ministry. It's really inspiring. He has so much insight. And I think you're going to love understanding how local churches and college campuses can partner together. You're going to love insight on longevity in ministry and how to raise up other shepherds, how to equip the saints to do the work of the ministry. We're really glad to have you here. Subscribe and join the community of young adult ministry leaders and enjoy today's conversation with Brennan. Rolling. What's up, fam? It's Josiah Keneally.
And Micah.
We're here. This is the Young Adults Today podcast. Thanks for joining us for an amazing conversation. We're joined by Brennan Schmidt, and welcome to the show.
Yeah, super glad to be here. It's been a long time coming.
Well, we are thrilled to have a new friend in ministry once again. There's nothing more enjoyable than seeing young adult ministries popping up all over the United States and God's hand of favor on them. And it's
In
just
the
the
Midwest,
funnest,
too.
well, all over the U.S. The
All
U.S.
over the U.S., unquestionably. But we're here in
We
Minnesota
are
as
the
we
Midwest.
record. You're in South Dakota, and so
I'm from North
Yeah,
Dakota originally. So look, Dakotas matter. We
yes,
do
they do.
matter.
yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Oh, I love it. Well, for us in our audience, Brendan, can you just kick it off? We always love to ask this question. Why does young adult ministry matter and why is it so vital in our day and age?
Yes, great. I've done young adult ministry for about 10 years now in different capacities. And the way I typically answer this question is first from why I love it, and then I can kind of speak to maybe why it's valuable in the church. And I have experience with some youth ministry stuff. I have some experience with like the intergenerational Sunday morning thing. And the thing I find is so unique about the young adult movement right now is just the freedom they have in choice and then the way they choose to use that freedom. Like when I did youth ministry, I think my constant struggle was, oh, your mom dropped you off. I'm your babysitter for an hour.
Right.
And there were
Totally.
still youth students that
Absolutely.
were all bought in, but there was a cultural expectation from their family, from their community that they were going to be at the Wednesday night gathering. And then in the Midwest where we're at, like on Sunday morning, there's a lot of that still. Like these people have been Christians their whole life. They've always gone to church. They can't imagine their life without church. And then you step into the young adult arena, and for the first time ever, they have all kinds of autonomy,
Mm-hmm.
unbelievable amount of choice,
Mm-hmm.
and total freedom. And they come to church.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I gather with my group on Sunday night, I have to sit there and I say, you all chose to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could have watched football, you could have done homework, you could have went on a date, you could have hung out with friends, you could have went to bed, you could have done anything. And nobody was asking you to be here. Nobody expects you to be here, but you're here. And that blows me away. It is the best group of people to lead because of that, because you just get to run with the horses. And what a privilege.
What is that? How is that approach different? Because I agree with you 100%. Yeah, 100% of the young adults there were, or high 90s,
Sure.
drove themselves. Maybe
Hmm.
some, it was a ride share, their neighbor, their
Hmm.
friend, their roommate. Somebody brought them, somebody invited 'em. Maybe an Uber or Lyft, or maybe a parent did. Rarely, but once in a
Rarely.
while,
Yeah.
what it could still happen. So high 90%. What does that do for the room in your
Mm.
estimation? How is the environment different when the people have voted with their feet to be there?
Sure. To me, it's always hard to lead people who are stagnant. It's hard to preach to a room that doesn't want to be galvanized. They don't want to move. Um, you don't have to fight those battles. Not with young adults, from what my experience. They are so hungry that it's like pouring gasoline on a fire. They're so in and excited. They're so optimistic for
Yeah.
what God can do,
Yep.
you just get to feed the flame.
Yeah.
So to step in and say like, I mean, sometimes it's the dangerous side of that. I call it the dangerous zeal of young adults. It's all passion, but not at the experience of maturity. But like it's literally like a flame. I mean, it can burn
Hmm.
some things, but when you get to help stoke that to life, there's not much better than that. So for the room, you feel it from the second you walk in. I mean, when we have people join us who have never been in a young adult space, the hunger is palpable.
Yeah.
The excitement is it's unmatched. You can't find it in other. It's just different.
Hmm. Definitely. The energy is there. And I think you said it just, you said you get to run with the horses
Yeah,
versus running with the people who are actually digging their heels in that don't want to be there. So when
sure.
you're running with the horses, like all our job is, I think, is to like pray that God has like taming their spirit, taming their desires in the process of dating and decisions and
Hmm.
running with the Lord and not from the Lord and creating a space where they have an opportunity to say no. Because one thing in our house, it's like we're never going to say no for somebody. So
Sure.
the
So
the
good.
extension of an invitation is so powerful. Of like every single person is one invitation away from experiencing Jesus,
Hmm.
one invitation away of saying yes. And I just think back of like how many times have I not invited somebody and I should have, or how many times have I said no for somebody because I was afraid of rejection.
Yeah.
So what are you seeing across the board when it comes to young adults that you get to serve? Like you said that they're hungry. How are
Hmm.
you able to help foster that hunger and help them to actually have roots and wings in your community, in the church, wherever God might be planting them, but not
Yeah.
clip their wings and hold them back, but bless and send? Like, does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yep. Typically, what I'd say is give them an endless amount of opportunity, provide them an abundance of resource and space. So, for example, like I'm just like you, I never want to say no for someone. And it's about for us providing the right spaces and the right opportunities for our young adults. But I'm all about here's the kids' ministry, you should serve there. Here's the youth ministry on Wednesdays, you should serve there. Here's the Sunday morning gathering, you should be in this. You should also be in this intergenerational group, and you should
Hmm.
be in this college group. And then here's how you can serve. Like I'm not gonna say no to for them. Some of the times, young adults and college students have the most free time. They have the
Hmm.
most margin in their lives that
Hmm.
they've ever had before, depending on work schedules, and so they have all of this time. A lot of them have that extra energy, so let's pour that into the right things.
Yeah.
And when they're in those spaces, if you provide the right spaces with the right resources, I mean, that is part of the fuel to the fire is they get to be around other Christians. They get to start to be a part of the body in a deeper way. They get to be fed from this sermon or that group or this seminar or that conference. And so just put everything in front of them and keep putting stuff in front of them. And a lot of times that their own ambition and hunger will lead them to really great growth.
I love that.
Oh my word. Brennan, hey, Micah, Brennan, can I be real for a second?
Always.
Sure.
Okay, hopefully the listener viewer is okay with that too for a second. But within young adults today, one of the things that I see helping a lot of local churches, our local church in Minnesota, across the state, across the US, one of the things that I see from time to time is pastors who have been around long enough to see young adult ministries maybe come and go, or single ministries back in the day, singles ministries
Mm,
Right.
come and go. And one of the attitudes or objections that I've seen from time to time is like, well, there's not room for that here. There's not, that's not part of
yeah.
our vision. Our primary vision is maybe young families or whatever. And
Mm,
so then what I see in response is well meaning pastors who are focused on their primary vision and strategy, and well meaning young adults who
Mm.
become ships passing by each other because
yep.
there isn't space for them in their local church. And so they maybe go
Yep.
do a parachurch young adult ministry
Mm.
that
Yeah.
blows up, fizzles out because it wasn't a church, but it met the needs of a generation where they didn't find a blessing or room or opportunity. So they did their own thing and then it was seasonal. And so,
Yeah.
what I want to drill down on for a second is young adult ministry within the local church.
Hmm.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're seeing with you, you're located uh, Brookings, South Dakota, correct?
Yes, Brookings, South Dakota. And it is okay if you've never heard of that place.
And so this would be also really close to SDSU.
Yep, same town. Yep.
And you've been there 10 years, a decade. You were a
Yeah.
student at SDSU.
hmm I
And so
was.
you've had the experience of what it's like to live in Brookings, South Dakota as a college student, as a
hmm
young adult, to be
Mm-hmm.
planted in a local church, to find roots, to find wings, to have
Mm-hmm.
space in the house to extend the vision of the church to a generation. But the ministry you're leading is called Oasis.
Yeah.
I love it.
I mean, you picture the desert for a second, and there is possibly young adults who are parched.
Yep.
You can imagine a generation drowning in information, famished for wisdom.
hmm
You could picture a generation longing for a drink from the living water. Well, let's just call it the Oasis. Take us to the Oasis in South Dakota. What does this look like for y'all?
Yeah, we are a weekly gathering. We meet on Sunday nights. We do two services now, 6:30 and 8 p.m. And we see it as a ministry of the larger body of GracePoint Church. So we have three Sunday morning services. Our two Sunday night services run independently in the sense of different message, different worship team, but same mission. And we try to stay very methodologically similar as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like we want someone, if they come on a Sunday morning, to not come back on a Sunday night and be like, whoa, this is radically different. We want it to be different enough where they feel seen. Like it should be, the message should be tailored to the young people. The worship should be made up of young people, but we're not picking like songs we'd never do across context. We're not
Mm-hmm.
preaching in ways that would feel disingenuous to the other spaces. We want some of that congruency.
Yeah.
So we meet in the same space as Sunday mornings even, but we make that space a little bit different so that it feels unique to the young adult experience, but still like Grace Point. And we want to, even in the way we do merch and the way we do signage and the way we do branding and the way we do socials and website, like we want there to be unique difference, but really, really solid congruency with the mission and method of what we're doing as a church. Uh, so I call that kind of our secret sauce. When I get on a phone call with someone trying to do young adult ministry, I find the secret sauce is being planted in a local church.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Always I think God loves his local church.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I just think he loves the local church. It is his means in which he is equipping people to reach the nations. Um, yeah, I think it's as simple as that.
Yes.
Part of it is then we also have a longevity in our context that extends beyond just Oasis. So our
Mm-hmm.
church started in about the 1960s, and from its origins and its inception, they always cared about the university that was in this town.
That's
They've
a
always
testimony. That's
they've always
beautiful.
cared about young
Oh
people. They
my
used to
word.
call it career and single fellowship.
Yep.
They called it a million different things, but in 2005 it got branded as Oasis and it became a little bit of what we know today. So people say, "Hey, what have you done right in the last 20 years?" And I say, "Well, stop actually. What have we done right as a church for the last 80 years?"
Mm,
Wow. That's so
That's the foundation of what we're doing now. We
mm-hmm.
get to reap generational, decade after decade after decade, faithfulness and prayer, generosity from our church. Young adult ministry is financially a
Mm-hmm.
burden for a lot of churches to be able to support it. The fact that for 80 years our church has said, we want to spend our money in that way. I mean, that's huge, huge. Through ups, through downs, through different leaders, through shifts and names and branding and language, and the church has stayed steadfast in that. That's why I
you
call it
know,
our secret sauce.
it reminds me of what Mark Batterson says. We drink
Hmm.
from wells we didn't dig. We live in houses we didn't build. We eat from gardens we didn't plant.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're describing.
Yeah. A- And people, so we in 2020, 2021, we were probably 250, 300 on a weekly Sunday night. Now we're running 7 to 800 on a weekly Sunday night between our two services. And sometimes people will say, What changed?" And I could give you tips and tricks. I could give you, hey, we moved this or we added this but honestly, it's so much of God has been faithful and I just got to be in the chair when he decided to pour this out.
I love it.
Other people have seen it. Other people will see it after me. I was just the lucky. I was sitting there God did a move. I just happened to be in the leadership position.
Mhm.
And I think that's a testimony to what God has done in this church, but what he's also doing across young people in our country.
I love that. Well, Brennan, thanks for even going there. And I want to just commend you for doing what you've been called to do and sticking with it and to be building off 80 years of history that hasn't
Yeah.
become a mirage,
Mm,
but it's been an
Yeah.
oasis
wow.
for
Hmm.
people. I think that that's huge. Like an oasis is it's a watering hole. It is a it's an it's a like I vision like this an island. It's a place where people want to go and want to
Yeah.
be. And I think like Josiah and I were sitting here like I think this is like the biggest young adult ministry in the Midwest that is meeting weekly, seeing those numbers and
Hmm.
caring for the college
Hmm.
students, the young career and probably the young couples in that process. So for
Mm.
the leader maybe tuning in today that's maybe at a local church or is near a college campus, how can they think through adding value to the spiritual lives of students when they find themselves in such close proximity and they don't know what to do, how to team up, and they maybe feel stagnant even though they see this need right before them?
Yeah. Yeah. When I boil it down, sometimes I get the question of like, what is the unique problem young adults are facing? And I think that's sometimes where the church tries to step in, or and maybe I'm hopefully answering your question, but like, how can we help solve the unique problem with for young adults? How can we serve them? I honestly try. I redirect the question a lot of times because I don't think for young adults the solution or the problem is that drastically different than for humanity.
Right.
The way you see it in middle schoolers, the way you see it in high schoolers, the way you see it in kids, the way you see it in retired people, it's the same fundamental issues. We just have to meet the young adults where they're at in
Yeah.
those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So for a Christian leader sitting there saying, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to provide, I don't know what to do, like young adults need purpose.
Mm-hmm.
They want their life to matter.
Hmm.
Nothing matters more than the kingdom. Help them see that.
Mm-hmm.
They want an identity that is rock solid. They want something that they know will not change when they move through the seasons. Young adult, like I think I saw a statistic this last week that by the time someone's 27, they'll have had 5 different jobs.
Yeah. A
Mm,
hundred
sounds about
percent. I
right.
buy it.
So everything in their whole life is moving constantly. If we can help provide them a steadfast identity that God loves you, you're his child, you were chosen, like that never changes.
Yeah.
And for young adults, that's if we can provide them connection, relationship. It's the same thing you're trying to provide for someone in your elderly ministry, or if you're working with a nurse, they want to feel like they can be a part of something. Young adults is the same. So it is finding what are the solutions Christianity provides when it talks about eternal life. It'll give you purpose, identity, hope, peace, joy. It's going to give you all of that because of who Jesus is and what he's done. Now, how do we tell that to young adults in a way that resonates with them?
Would you say that that is like going back to the basics and the fundamentals?
I think so.
I think so
I
too.
have every so we have one of the hardest parts, and I think Josiah, one of the things that I think is so unique about the 80-year history here
Yeah.
is I think the hardest part of young adult ministry is the transient nature of
Yes.
them, that they're moving so often.
Right.
So
Right.
right now, let's say we have 100 on a or 700 on a Sunday night.
Right.
In 3 to 4 years, that'll be a completely new 700
I'm
people.
glad you said
New
that
crop.
because it's a fact, and it'd be the same in a different community. Probably
Yeah.
every 3, 4, 5 years of young
Hmm.
adult ministry, you're going to see near 100% turnover. Even if people remain in Brookings, South Dakota,
Yep.
they might have gotten married. They
Hmm.
might have kids and feel like, well, we jive better on Sunday mornings now with childcare and
Hmm.
so forth. And so they move to Minneapolis or Miami or you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Hmm.
and that's
Yep.
not failure.
Mm-mm.
That's actually part of success is launching them. I interrupted you, but I'm like, yes.
No, yes, 100%. And part of it is okay. So if that is the reality, we can try and stranglehold people in our space and say, you're my disciple, I'm keeping you here.
Uh,
Or we can trust that God is doing something across the larger kingdom, and we can
Hmm.
hold people open-handedly and say, while I have you, can I shepherd and steward as well as possible to send you into what God has next? One of the biggest wins I ever have in young adult ministry is when I'll have a pastor or a church call me and say, hey, this person just joined our community. They say they're from they're amazing. And I'm
Hmm.
like, yes, they are. I am so grateful they're in your space. Utilize them. Keep discipling them. They have more to give. Like that is such a gift to me. And so what we try to do is we try to send really well. Because if we're releasing 700-ish people every 3 to 4 years,
Yeah.
I could tell you about a leader in Zambia, in Germany, on the West Coast, on the East Coast. I can tell you in the South. I mean, they're everywhere. They're everywhere. I bet in every 50 state I have someone who's been at Oasis in the last decade.
Praise God.
Inspiring.
How how do we leverage that for the greater kingdom? So all that to come back to say, am I getting back to the basics? Yes. Because I had to come to this realization, I probably only get you for 3 to 4 years. So in 3 to 4 years, what do I need you to know before you move to the next thing?
It's so good.
So the way we plan our preaching calendar, the way we organize our groups, the way I teach my leaders these are it's almost catechismic. It's like these are the 10 things that
Yeah.
we have to say.
Yeah.
And we kind of just cycle those things because we don't have the luxury of someone's going to be in our context for 50 years. And so we can kind of build slowly over time. We have to have these are our core fundamental principles. You need to know purpose, identity, biblical worldview. You need to know these things so that we can send you well.
You just listed four of them, but can you unpack as many as you can think of? Like, because I think also Sunday school largely in evangelicalism is gone,
Yeah.
And so where biblical literacy was formed in my life,
Hmm.
Hmm.
as a second grader, getting a junior Bible quiz folder with a orange sticker on it that said
Hmm.
Ephesians 4:32, be
Yeah.
kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as Christ Jesus forgave you. Here's your two Laffy Taffy. Next week is Acts 1:8, but you'll receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on
Yeah.
you, and you'll be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, to the ends of the earth.
Hmm.
Largely, community is has collapsed
Yeah.
even in Christianity, and
Hmm.
largely biblical literacy and worldview have plummeted.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And Henrietta Mears in the 1940s pioneered with Bill Bright and a lot of Billy Graham, Ronald Reagan. She wrote a lot of Sunday school curriculum that young adult ministries or single ministries at the time used 80 years
Interesting.
ago.
Hmm.
Hmm.
But largely, that catechism or Sunday school has kind of been removed. So, unpack for you, Brennan, if you get a young adult for 10 weeks, 10 months, or 8 semesters, what did they pick up?
Yeah. I mean, we start every fall and almost like text every fall we start. Who is Jesus? Who is Jesus? Who is Jesus? Who is Jesus? The first 4 to 6 weeks of every single starting the fall, we see a huge in crop of freshmen. We see lots of new young adults who are just moving to the community trying to get plugged in. It is our biggest night, our heaviest push. So those first are always going to be who is Jesus? And that's fundamental. So that's the one that's like cyclical every year. It's always going to start that way. But then core ones, like I said, we're going to do relationships. Young adults.
Oh, young
I,
adults want to talk about sex. They want to
I,
talk about dating and marriage and relationships
and I think
100%.
it gets a bad rap that it's almost clickbaity because it's like,
Mm,
oh, because people want to hear about it, but they want to hear about it because it's deeply impactful for their life. So they're already
totally.
wrestling with it. We need to speak into it. Now, we do that every other year because we'll rotate that with a mental health series. If I was going to say the two issues that might be unique to young adults are how they're trying to navigate specifically romantic relationships and then the burden they feel mentally to just go each day. Um, and God is so kind in his word to provide an ample amount of wisdom and resource to that. So we try to teach that every other year. We rotate those two. We want to teach a biblical worldview, so we're going to have conversations on that. We want to teach like an exegetical mindset around the scripture. So we try to do a New Testament series. We try to do an Old Testament series because we want people to see the value in both of those. We do purpose, we do identity, we do missions once a year. And the missions one is usually just a one-off. We'll have a missionary come in, but we want how can we take people beyond the scope of what they see every day? Even if it's just for a week, I need you to think about God's bigger kingdom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we roll a mission trip every spring, typically on spring break. That Sunday, so this Sunday when students come back, our missions pastor is going to teach God's global kingdom. And we're doing that every year because I need you to know it's bigger than what's just happening here in
Mm,
Brookings.
mm,
Um, I'm sure we do an apologetics thing, and it's not answering every apologetics question. It's trying to teach people to think critically about the world
beautiful.
because there's more information at your fingertips than ever before. Half of it is fake AI stuff now.
You're right.
We have to teach you how to navigate that. And so we're teaching that kind of like apologetic critical thinking. Yeah, I would say those are probably off the top of my head without the document in front of me. The core, hey, in 4 years, you're going to learn these things for sure.
Love that. I
Let's
was taking
go.
notes. If I'm
Hey,
looking down, it's because I'm writing like a madman over here.
thanks so much for going there. That is off script, and this probably is as well. But you and I have connected and chatted, and you help a lot of pastors. You get your phone rings with
It
churches and
does.
pastors who are like, "Hey, what's happening? What's God doing?"
Hmm.
And you know what? We sit in a space where we want to serve as many pastors and
Mm-hmm.
churches as we can, connecting, expanding God's vision, his mission to the
Yep.
to the future generations. And
Mm-hmm.
so, what are a few of your non-negotiables when a pastor calls and
Mm.
they gave you permission to speak into their church, their approach, their strategy? What are a couple non-negotiables for you if a church really wants to minister effectively, sustainably
Yeah.
to young adults? What are like a few of your core convictions?
I'm gonna tell you right off the bat, they're not sexy answers. The number one thing that I tell people is it has to be missionally aligned with what your church at large is doing. Because there's such movement behind young adults right now, I think it's easy to start something, build it, see it grow, see it flourish, get really excited, and drift from what God has been doing in your space. So, like, what is the mission of your church? That needs to be the exact same mission, but for the specific demographic of young adults. That's my conviction. I think that breeds long-term health and success. Because your young adult ministry might boom beyond what your church is doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it has to, if it's missionally aligned, now everybody's benefiting. Like everybody in the space from kids to youth to intergenerational to missions to care, like it all can benefit if there's a missional like symmetry there. Um, that's usually the first one. And then the second question I ask is like, what do you want it to be?
Mm-hmm.
I think we see a movement of God's Spirit among young people, and we see an excitement of churches or leaders that say, I want to be involved in that. And we jump in, but we don't really know what we're building yet. And we kind of throw pieces together. But what I see is it can cause more confusion amongst an already confused generation. And it leads to it doubles down on the church hurt experience of some people where they join the young adult ministry and at one point it was groups, now it's a service, now it's monthly, now it's events, now it's community or like and it pinballs around and now
Mm-hmm.
you have all these people with whiplash and you're like, I don't know what we are. And it gets reinvented with every new leader because there's lots of turnover in churches and leadership positions and it has money and then it doesn't have money and it disappears, then it comes back and now everybody's fatigued and burnt out and frustrated and confused. And so before we do anything, let's decide what is this?
What's the
And
bullseye? What's the target? What are we
yeah,
aiming at?
Well,
what do we want to build here? And it's going to move along the way a little bit, but if we can have consistency from the get, now we can invite people in. And I love the language of clarity is kindness.
Yes.
So people know what to expect. They know where it's going as they see it change. There has to be a level of flexibility with change, but it's not going to 180 on the people who are trying to build something with others in this.
mm-hmm.
So know what you're at. And then the third one is I play off of that is really let your leadership speak into what it is. Um, I think a lot of lead pastors or executive teams can feel very taxed and they don't have the capacity to add something on. So if they have the finances, they'll hire someone to do it
Right.
and they'll tell you the mission, but then they cut you loose to have flexibility to build. And if the leadership doesn't get to speak into it at key components along the way, I think that's where not just missionally, but like within your methods, you can start to derail or go off, and it can cause a lot of tension within church staffs. So make sure that your leadership, even if they've empowered you to lead it, has voice at critical moments when you're making impactful decisions
Mm-hmm.
to know that you're heading in the right direction so you can have that viability long term.
I love
Like
that.
nobody wants to do a young adult ministry, and then in 3 years, the lead pastor says we're not doing that anymore because it's not what I want.
Mm-hmm.
No, nobody wants to build that. Nobody signs up for that. No young adult wants to be a part of that. So how can we just give that lead pastor, that executive team voice to make sure that in 5 years, if I'm not still the guy, I know the church is still in line with what we're doing and we can keep building.
Yeah. So
Man,
good.
I love that you went there. I think the one piece that I would chime in with and say yes, yes, yes. I think I would say that it's gotta be one of the pastors, like the pastor, the lead pastor. Let's talk about senior leadership. The lead pastor has to want it and believe
Hmm.
in it.
Yeah.
And if they just give it lip service or like, yeah, we should just hire somebody to try something versus like, I want this in our church,
Hmm.
if it's
Yeah.
not supported both verbally, but
Yeah.
from the pulpit
Mm-hmm.
and from our financial resources of volunteers or like just
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
we
Mm-hmm.
believe in this, we're
Yeah.
committed to it. Pastors from the pulpit talk about the things that they believe are core convictions.
Sure.
So even as simple as an illustration of when I was a young adult,
Mm.
I remember being a college student and
Hmm.
weaving that in, or hey, it's the last Sunday in August, and we want to welcome all of our jackrabbits from South
Yeah.
Dakota. Or you know what I mean? Contextualizing that we see you here and
Yeah.
you're a
Yep.
part of this vision.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think that's a key word right there. Like after you've submitted to the mission of the lead pastor, like are we in alignment and we're not going to experience the mission drift and run rogue and become a church within a church? The vision has to be there. Like the second one, all I could think of is like without vision, the people perish.
Hmm.
So like when that 10th pastor comes on in 11 years, the whole church rolls their eyes and it's like, oh, my heart goes out to that person getting their
Sure.
eyeballs like all they see is the eyeballs rolling because they're like, oh, here we go again. And how do we flip that script in that process? And I think when you are in alignment and you're asking those tough questions and bringing the right people to the table at those critical moments like you're talking about, then you're starting to build something hopefully sustainable from the get-go. And whether it stays whatever model it is, if it's small groups or Bible studies, if it's weekly
Yeah.
service, if it's quarterly events with stuff, drizzled in between there, it's like, yeah. And I also love Young Adult Ministry. At least our pastor has given us the opportunity to say, like, hey, here's a blueprint, essentially, but you guys get to push out some walls and reestablish
Yep.
this. And yep, you're gonna have to rethink that leadership team, and there's your worship team, and know that that revolving door is happening. But when you get that update for that blueprint, please send it back to me and let's talk about it. And
Yeah.
it's not because they want to control it; it's because they're like, I need to know what I'm praying for. Like, do
Yeah.
you have what you need, Micah and Josiah? Do you have what you need, Brennan and team? Like, do
Hmm.
you have what you need from the people and resources? And are we utilizing what we have to the best of our ability to see God's kingdom come on this side of eternity and not building our
Yeah.
own kingdom in the process? So those are just thoughts I had to
Does
throw in.
longevity of leader matter at all?
That is a fantastic question. I honestly, yes, but maybe not as much as in some other areas. So, for instance, I think youth ministry is one of those ones they see lots of turnover along next gen and
Right,
youth ministry.
right,
And so, if you have a middle school and high school pastor, you're going to have that student for 7 years,
right.
hopefully, right? If they're consistent. And I think that matters a little bit more, just because young adult stuff is so transient. If for us, right, we have, oh man, in my 10 years, I've served under three. I'll be the third Oasis pastor.
Wow.
Um, so yeah, in college there was one guy, and then there was one guy who did a 2 year stint. He kind of just like he just came in and did an amazing job setting up some really key things that I got to inherit and run with. And then he moved to a different position on staff at the church. And uh, but in that, because we had some of the other things that I had talked about, there wasn't this volatility to what people's experience was.
That's
I
good.
mean, there's a personality to it. I think the leader of anything, they bring their personality. You teach what you know, you reproduce who you are, is a quote from Chad Veach, and there's truth to that. So the way I teach, the way I lead, there's a uniqueness to that. But Oasis from now to 10 years ago is the same thing. Uh, and one of the biggest transitions for us to go even from 200 to 700 has
Hmm.
been the role I play within the
Hmm.
ministry. I This is going to sound terrible. I know less people now than I did 6 years ago in the ministry.
Hmm.
I know the right people now, not right as in more valuable, but right as in the most integral to what we're doing. And I have the connections with the people I need to. But on an actual Sunday night with those who are in the room, I know less names than I knew 6 years ago. And that was so hard for me. I'm a
I
huge
bet.
relational person.
Yeah,
I
that'd be
loved
hard for
standing
me.
at the I loved standing at the front door and saying, "Hey, what's up and what's up and what's up?" And I'm still present. I'm still around. I still connect. I still take some of those meetings. That's just not where a majority of my time can be spent.
Right.
So I spend my time with the leaders. So even in that, like when I move on to the next thing, the groundswell of people who attend Oasis, they'll maybe miss my preaching, maybe. I don't know. Maybe they won't miss me. Maybe they're like, thank goodness that guy's gone. But they might, but they're not gonna likely say I missed his relational input in my life because that's no longer the role I play. That's what we've created teams. That's what we've just
Equip
em,
saints
em-
for.
that's what we've empowered people to do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I tell my small group leaders all the time. We have a small group leadership, like small groups of we about 70 leaders. I tell them you're more of a pastor to the people, more of a shepherd than I am in many senses.
Hmm.
I provide macro shepherding. I provide you shepherding. I know your name. I'm here for you anytime you need. But you are that for the other people.
Hmm.
And that is a hard switch in and some I lament that sometimes. I wish I could go back to some of the days where but that's not where we're at. And it's not
Right.
if I try to lead that way, I'll do a disservice to what I think God wants to do in this space, continuing going forward.
That's great.
My take within Next Gen is it seems like youth ministry and kids ministry is highly resilient,
Hmm.
meaning that as a kids ministry, the parents likely, okay, the K through 5 pastor transitions out, or the fourth, third, fourth, fifth pastor, for third, fourth, and fifth grade, they switched leaders. I think
Sure.
most of the families are still committed. Same
Hmm.
with 6th through 12th or middle school, high school. I see young adult ministry as a little bit more fragile. It's
Interesting. Okay.
growing. I think that broadly what we're seeing is attendance is outpacing leadership development. Not in
Hmm.
your case. You've got that 70 core leaders
Hmm.
under shepherds, but in a lot of places that maybe young adult just ministry hasn't been going 60, 80 years, it's been going
Yeah.
4 or 4 months.
Hmm.
4 years to 4 months would be a lot of churches. And so it's such a unique ministry, um, that like when it just seems like so abrupt if a leader is there only 18 months, it just seems like back to your whiplash point for
Sure.
people.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and I guess maybe I just don't have that. So even in the transition where the guy was here for 2 years, I was his understudy. So they saw me preach. I was at all the meetings. I was at all the events. So maybe even that, just the transition period. All of our transitions here have been elongated, so it hasn't
Hmm.
been very quick when we have changed. But I see what you're saying. I think I could see that.
Yeah.
And man, it would be what are for those leaders? Because you still have to be you and lead well. But what is it that you can build around you that doesn't happen?
Hmm.
Because I don't know a ton of people who are doing young adult ministry for 20 years.
It's
Maybe.
very rare.
Very rare.
It's
Yeah.
Very
very
rare.
rare. I think it probably is another thing like next gen. youth ministry where people will do this for a season and then they'll get jobs as XPs and jobs as
Yep.
leads and jobs as
Yep.
campus pastors. And that doesn't mean you can't serve really faithfully where you're at, but it probably isn't one of those roles that has super long-term longevity. So if we understand that, we have to build around part of that reality too.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful thought.
Mm-hmm. I think here in the Midwest, one of the realizations I'm having, at least from Minnesota, is that many individuals who live here stay here or
Hmm.
live here and come back.
Right.
So, our working definition of young adults is the ages between 18 and 30. So, you might have people for 12 years who
Sure.
stick with you, which sounds like, I don't know if that's real or not, but they're still sticking around in some way, shape, or form. It feels maybe not
Yeah.
100%, but I'm just like processing. I'm just like, so the people who have been around to see those 11 leaders in 10 years, in their 12 years of exposure to the church they've been attending, I'm just processing out loud now, just like how do we not build our ministries on our character or our charisma and build it with Christ at the center,
Yeah.
Beautiful.
equipping the saints to find their identity, the mental health things, the questions they have, unpacking all those dynamic things that you guys unpack. I think for you to produce that many solid people and bless and send.
Amazing.
I love hearing that because I feel like we've received a lot of duds.
Oh,
I'm sorry to say it. We've received like this person's great. But what I'm seeing is what's happened, at least here in Minnesota primarily, is that they have made their young adult ministry their church or their
Hmm.
Chi Alpha their church or their campus
Sure.
ministry their church. How have you been able to I don't know, like leverage your time, your leadership, and your ability to multiply yourself with those 70 leaders that they will multiply as well. Like, how have you been able to pour into that? And maybe for the person listening, like, I'm just happy I have two volunteers in a team. But
Yeah.
man, at 200, how many volunteers did you guys have running? Do you know?
So we've typically run a leadership team of somewhere between 15 to 30 for
mm,
almost 2 decades.
mm,
Okay.
Even when the ministry was like 150, they had about 15 core people, usually students, but sometimes they're young
Wow.
professionals who are a part of that
Awesome.
team. So we've kept that backbone. If I were to have a whiteboard, I'd draw you a picture. But I describe our organizational structure, and this is kind of the system that supports what God is doing. Is the head is like the staff. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't ask a lot of my college student volunteers or leaders to make a bunch of critical decisions for the ministry. I
right.
used to do some of that. Hey, how are we going to do this? Or what are we? They're 19.
They
They
don't know
don't
what
have
they
any
don't
church.
know.
They've been here 12 months. They don't, yeah. So I've been here 10 years. I think I can handle with my 2 to 3 staff people making a lot of the vision, strategic decisions, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But then what we do is we hand that to our leadership team, which right now is 28 people. So our 28 people give us 5 to 7 hours a week of volunteering.
Wow, that's awesome.
90% of them are college students. Out of those 28, three of them are young adults.
Incredible.
So those people, we have weekly meetings on Monday nights. It's an hour, and my main purpose is to disciple and train them in leadership. So my two things I say is I want you to know how to follow Jesus better, and I want you to know how to help other people follow Jesus better. And so
Amazing.
every other week, I bring a teaching to that space. So I teach twice a week, Sunday nights, and then Monday nights to this team. And I'm teaching around those two principles. And I have a curriculum that I
Awesome.
build that's 9 months. It goes every year. If someone's on that team for 3 years, they're going to have those 3 years of content, but it's weekly. I do that with that team. We cast vision, we coach there, we disciple, we pray there, we worship there. There's lots of things that happen in that space. But then what we were at 200 is we had the spine. So there's the head with the staff, the spine was the leadership team, but we didn't have anything else.
Hmm.
And we had lots of people who wanted to get involved, but
Yes.
they weren't quite. So our leaders, they apply, we do interviews, we tell some people no. It's a highly we guard that team pretty closely. And that's why
Mhm.
even though we're at 700, that team is not 50 now. It's still
Wow.
20, 28 because what I ask of those people is really like it's a lot. It's a big commitment. I tell them it's a calling. It's not just another club or organization you're a part of.
Right.
But when the people who didn't have the time or weren't ready for that, where did we send them? So what we created 5 years ago is something we call the ministry team. And I now say this is our appendages back out to the body.
Let's
They're the
go.
arms and the legs. And so that team right now is about 130 people. And so those 130 people, they're the ones who meet most regularly with our leaders. So you could walk into any coffee shop, most restaurants in Brookings,
Come
and you're
on.
going to find one of my leaders there meeting with someone from our ministry team.
Wow.
So they're all discipling, shepherding, pastoring those people. So they're often the co-leaders, they're the Sunday night volunteers, they help with our events, they do worship, they do tech, that's the ministry team. So even our leaders, what we're asking of them in their 5 to 7 hours is not really doing the tasks anymore. I want you leading the people who do the tasks.
Yes.
Mm,
I can find anybody to hold the door. I
you're
could find a
right.
doorstop to hold the door.
Right.
I need
You're
you
right.
as a leader to shepherd the
A
team
part
that
of
are greeting
people.
people when they come in.
Yeah.
And then we coach our ministry team. It's again, it's the same. I don't need you to hold the door. I need you to welcome the people. But it's different. That leader functioning in that space is the spine. I'm even less concerned about you greeting people well and you shepherding that small team, those three other volunteers you have with you every week. That's your pastoring moment that
Love
week.
it.
Shepherd that team really well. And so that ministry team becomes the appendages, and then your hands, your feet, your fingers,
Yeah.
those are all our congregation. And as long as they're connected in some way to that ministry team, to the leadership team, to the staff, that's what's helped us kind of deploy people as well as encourage them along the way. And that ministry team meets once a month then. So we have a monthly meeting with that 140 person team. And we'll do pretty much its connection. So that's where we find we do games, mixer, snack, get them to know each other because we see some really valuable relationships start that way.
Yes.
And then we teach them fundamental mission values. So we meet 6 times a year. We're going to teach the mission for a couple of weeks and we're going to teach the values. And if they come back the next year, the teachings will be the same because that's what that 140 people need to know.
This is
Brennan,
awesome. Thank you for
thanks
going
for
there.
that masterclass. And I can't wait to come see it, Lord willing, and
There you
just
go.
witness all that God's doing. And we just want to pause and thank you for your passion for
Mhm. Yeah.
Jesus, for your
Mm,
commitment to the next generation, and for the conversation today right here.
yeah. Thank you guys. Thanks for doing what you do and trying to empower young adults and young adult ministries and for taking time to chat today.
Hey, everybody, this is Mike with the Young Adults today, and I just want to say a special thank you to everybody who has been praying, supporting, and coming alongside us as a ministry. We've just been seeing some amazing things. God is on the move. We're just trying to keep up. We just get to keep up and serve Him in the process and young adult ministry leaders. And one thing we want to update you with is we just got back from GCU, Grand Canyon University in Arizona. We had a conference there for young adult ministry leaders, and it was our first ever experience down there, and we had such a blast. One of my favorite things was seeing all the ministries emerging in the valley, and what a great opportunity to serve God's young adults. They are sheep without a shepherd, and God is raising up some shepherds to take care of the flocks. So I just want to say a special thank you. We love you, we appreciate you, and look forward to more things that God is going to be working on behind the scenes with us.